In a quiet farming village where the nights were long and the days were slow, the people lived simple lives. They grew their crops, they cared for their animals, and they trusted the seasons. But one summer night, something strange began. It started with missing cabbages, the green round cabbages that the farmers loved, the ones they sold in the market and cooked for their families. Every morning, one or two would be gone, and no one knew why. At first, the farmers thought it was a fox, or maybe wild boars from the forest. They set small traps. They placed nets, but nothing worked. The cabbages vanished again and again. Not a sound in the night, not a broken fence, not even footprints in the soft dirt. The villagers whispered about it. Some laughed and said maybe the wind carried them away. Others looked at the dark forest and felt uneasy, because in their hearts they knew the forest was old and full of secrets. The old woman, her name was Mara, lived at the edge of the village. Her little wooden house stood beside the cabbage fields, and her land always grew the best crops. She was not young. Her back was bent from years of work, but her eyes were sharp, sharper than most. She was the first to say, "This is no fox, no boar. No thief from the village, something else is coming here." The other villagers only shook their heads. They thought her words were old woman's stories, but Mara kept watching. Night after night she sat by her window, the moon shining on the green fields, and she waited. At first she saw nothing, only shadows moving with the wind. But one night, when the air was still and the dogs in the village were silent, she saw movement, something small, something quick. It slipped into the field as if it did not fear the darkness. Mara held her breath and pressed her face close to the window. What she saw was not a fox, not a boar, not even a child from the village. It was shaped like a child, small and thin, but its skin seemed to shine faintly. Almost like silver touched by moonlight, its eyes glowed softly, not with fire but with a strange calm light. It bent down and plucked a cabbage from the ground, hugged it close as if it were treasure, and walked away without hurry, without fear. Without looking around, Mara's heart beat fast. She had lived many years and seen many things, but never this. She wanted to call out. She wanted to shout to the other villagers, but the sound caught in her throat. The figure moved like no human child, too silent, too certain, as if the night belonged to it. She watched until it disappeared into the trees at the edge of the field, and only then did she breathe again. The next morning Mara went to the village square. She told the people what she had seen, but they laughed. They said she was dreaming. They said her eyes were old and full of tricks, one farmer said. Maybe it was just a lost child, another said. You scare yourself with shadows, but Mara knew the truth. She had seen the glowing eyes, the way it walked, fearless, calm, like it had no reason to hide. That night Mara made a choice. She would not sit at her window. She would not only watch, she took her rusty old shovel, the one she used for digging in her garden, and she walked into the cabbage field. She stood there as the moon rose high. The field was silent. Her hands shook, but her spirit was strong. She thought, if it is a thief, I will stop it. If it is a spirit, I will face it. Her eyes stayed fixed on the edge of the forest. Hours passed. The night was heavy and cold. The crickets sang. The wind touched the leaves, and then, as if the darkness itself opened, the figure came again, small, calm, carrying nothing. Moving toward the cabbages, Mara's breath caught. The figure stepped into the moonlight. And there it was, the strange child again, with silver skin and glowing eyes, reaching for another cabbage. Fearless as before, Mara lifted her shovel. Her voice broke the silence. Stop, she said, her words shaking but strong. The figure froze, turned its head, and looked at her. The eyes glowed brighter now, and in that moment Mara felt the truth deep inside. This was no child of the village, no creature of the forest. It was something else, something not from this world. And yet it looked at her not with anger, not with fear, but with calm, almost with curiosity. The night stretched between them, the old woman with her shovel, the strange child with the cabbage in its hands, the village asleep and unaware. And in that quiet moment the story truly began, a story of fear, of choice, and of something far greater than stolen cabbages. The night was cold, the air sharp with silence. The village slept. But Mara stood in her cabbage field with her rusty shovel in hand. She was old but not weak, her back bent but her spirit unbroken. She had seen the strange child with glowing eyes, and she knew it would return. Thieves always return, and this one was no thief of the village. No animal from the forest. It was something else. Something beyond. Her heart thumped like a drum in her chest, but her feet stayed firm. She whispered to herself, if no one believes me, then I must face it alone. The moonlight painted her field in silver light. Every cabbage glistened with dew. Every shadow looked alive. Mara gripped the wooden handle of her shovel tighter, her wrinkled hands shaking but her eyes sharp and clear. Time stretched. The night was heavy. Hours passed. The wind moved softly across the field. Owls hooted in the distance, and then without sound, without warning, the figure came. It slipped from the forest edge as if it was part of the night, small, thin, glowing faintly, eyes like two quiet stars. The alien child, the thief of cabbages, walked forward with the same calm steps, fearless, certain, as if the world belonged to it. Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. She raised her shovel, and for the first time in many years, her voice rose like a challenge. "Stop right there." The sound cut through the night, harsh, trembling. But strong, the figure halted. It turned slowly, and those glowing eyes fixed on her. Not blinking, not afraid, only curious, like the gaze of something that had never known fear. The child tilted its head. Holding a cabbage close to its chest, it looked at Mara as if trying to understand her. The way humans look at animals that act strangely, its small fingers pressed into the leaves. It made no sound, no sudden move, only silence. A silence heavy with meaning. Mara's grip on the shovel tightened. The metal head glinted under the moon. Her breath came fast, her heart told her to run, but her pride told her to stay. "You cannot take what is not yours," she said, her voice breaking yet firm. "These fields are mine, these cabbages are mine, and you will not steal them again." The child blinked slowly, then stepped forward. One soft step, then another. Mara held her ground, her body trembling but her spirit like iron. When the child was close enough for her to see its strange silver skin, she gasped softly, because it was not like anything she had ever seen. Not animal, not human, not spirit, something beyond all those things. The glow in its eyes softened, almost gentle. The child stretched out one hand, thin and delicate, as if asking, not taking. Mara hesitated, for in that moment she saw hunger. Not anger, she saw loneliness, not greed. The cabbage was clutched like food, like treasure, and her heart, old and scarred, felt a tug of pity. She lowered her shovel slightly, though her fear did not leave her. "Who are you?" she whispered. "What are you?" But the child gave no answer. Its mouth opened, but no words came, only a soft sound, broken, like the wind through reeds. It tilted its head again, eyes glowing gently, then stepped back, hugging the cabbage closer, as if to say it would not fight her, but it would not stop either. Mara's thoughts swirled. She could shout for the villagers. She could chase it away. She could strike with her shovel, yet something deep inside her told her no. She knew this was not a beast, not a thief, but a child, a lost child. Perhaps not from this world, but still a child all the same. She let her shovel fall slightly, the tip touching the dirt, her eyes never leaving its face. The child turned, slow and calm, and began to walk toward the forest again. Clutching the cabbage, Mara wanted to stop it, to demand answers. But her legs felt heavy. Her voice caught in her throat. She only watched as it faded back into the trees, silver glow melting into shadows, gone as silently as it came when it was over. Mara stood in her field, breath shaking, shovel heavy in her hands, her mind racing. She had faced it. She had spoken to it, but what was it? Where did it come from, and why did it choose her cabbages? She looked at the dark forest and felt a strange pull, as if the answers were hidden there, waiting. The next morning she told the villagers again. She told them how she had stood in the field and faced the child with glowing eyes. But again they laughed. They said, "You are old. Your mind is playing tricks," one man said. "Perhaps it is a spirit testing you," another said. "It is only your imagination." But Mara knew the truth. She had seen it up close. She had felt its presence. She had faced its gaze. And she could not forget. That night she made a promise to herself. She would not stop. She would not be blind like the others. She would find where the child came from. She would learn the truth, and she would face it again, even if it cost her everything. She placed her shovel by the door, sat by the window, and waited for the moon to rise once more. Because Mara, the old woman of the cabbages, was not done, not yet. The night had ended, the sun had risen, yet Mara's mind stayed restless. Her wrinkled hands shook as she washed them in the basin. Her eyes stared out the window toward the cabbage field. Her body was tired, but her thoughts burned like fire. She had stood face to face with the strange child. She had seen its glowing eyes, its silver skin, its small hands holding a cabbage like treasure. And she knew, deep in her bones, that this was not of earth. She tried to tell herself it was only a dream. That age had tricked her eyes, but no. The memory was too sharp, too real. The way it moved, the silence of its steps, The way it looked at her without fear. No dream could hold such weight. This was truth. And yet the villagers laughed. They did not believe her. They said she was chasing shadows, but Mara knew. Shadows did not have eyes that glowed like quiet stars. That day she worked in her field, but her mind was not on her cabbages. Her thoughts kept wandering to the forest, the dark line of trees that swallowed the child each night. She asked herself again and again, where did it go? Where did it come from? Why here, why her? She felt the forest calling, as if whispering, come and see. Come and know when night fell again. She did not wait by her window. She did not only hold her shovel, she lit a small lantern, wrapped herself in a thick shawl, and stepped quietly into the field, her feet light on the earth, her eyes sharp on the forest. The moon was high, the wind soft, and Mara's heart steady. She whispered, if you are a thief, I will catch you. If you are lost, I will find you. And if you are from beyond, then I will face you. And then, as before, the child came, slipping from the shadows, eyes glowing, skin faintly shining, small arms hugging a cabbage. Mara did not lift her shovel this time. Instead, she took one step forward, slow, careful. The child stopped, watching her, silent as always, and for a moment the two stood like statues, human and not human. Joined by the quiet night, Mara lifted her lantern. The soft light brushed the child's face, and she gasped. For now she could see clearer. The skin was not silver, but pale with a strange shimmer, like water under moonlight. Lines of faint glowing marks curved across its cheeks, patterns too perfect to be random, too strange to be natural, like stars drawn on skin. The child's eyes reflected the lantern, twin lights within twin orbs, and Mara whispered, you are not from here. Are you? The child tilted its head, then touched its own chest with a small hand, then pointed upward, toward the sky. Mara's breath caught. She understood, not with words, but with meaning. This child was from the stars, from beyond the earth. From the wide, dark heavens above, her knees almost gave way. But she steadied herself, never looking away. The child stepped closer, as if sensing she was no longer a threat. It reached out its hand, thin fingers trembling, and touched the lantern glass. The glow of its eyes softened. And in that moment, Mara felt no fear, only wonder. A wonder she had not felt since she was a girl staring at the night sky. The child made a soft sound, broken like the cry of a bird. Then another sound, almost like a word, but twisted, bent, not of her tongue. It tried again, its lips shaping strange syllables. And Mara realized it was trying to speak, trying to reach her. Though its voice was weak and strange, she whispered gently, do not fear, little one. I will not harm you. The child blinked. And for a heartbeat, Mara saw something in its eyes. Not just hunger, not just need, but deep sadness. Loneliness older than its small body. It clutched the cabbage tighter, as if it was the only friend it had. Mara's heart ached. She lowered her shovel completely, and instead stretched her hand out, palm open, not to take, but to offer trust. The child looked at her hand, hesitated, then placed its own small hand into hers, cold, fragile, yet alive. And for the first time, Mara felt the truth. This was no monster, no thief, no spirit. It was a child, alone, stranded, far from home, and she was the only one who had seen its pain. But before she could speak again, before she could ask anything, the child pulled back suddenly, its glowing eyes darting toward the forest. As if it had heard something, it turned and ran, faster than any human child, slipping into the shadows. Gone in seconds, Mara stood frozen, lantern shaking in her hand, heart heavy with wonder and fear. But now she knew. She had touched a child from the stars when she returned to her house. Her mind burned with questions. What ship had brought it here? Why was it alone? Could others be near? And most of all, would it come back? She sat by her window until the first light of dawn, clutching her shawl, staring at the forest, whispering to herself, I will find you. Little one, I will find you, whatever you are, wherever you come from. The days passed slowly, but Mara's heart no longer rested. Her hands still worked in the cabbage field. Her body still moved through the old rhythm of village life. But her mind stayed locked on the forest, the deep green wall of trees that had swallowed the child each night. She knew now that the answers lay inside, not in the laughter of the villagers, not in their careless words, but in the shadows where the child disappeared. The villagers still teased her. They said she chased ghosts. They said age had filled her head with stories. But Mara did not care. Her eyes had seen truth. Her hands had touched it, and she could not forget. Every night she waited, hoping to see the glowing eyes again. Sometimes the child came, sometimes it did not. but always it slipped back into the trees, always away from her sight, and the pull in her chest grew stronger. She needed to know where it went. She needed to know what it was hiding one evening. As the sun sank and the sky burned with orange and red, Mara made her choice. She wrapped herself in her old shawl, carried her lantern, and stepped quietly into the forest. Her shovel she left behind, for she did not want to fight. She wanted to follow. She wanted to see. The trees closed around her, tall and silent, the ground soft with leaves, the air damp and full of shadows, but she did not turn back. Hours seemed to stretch as she walked. Every branch cracked under her feet. Every owl's call made her heart jump. Yet she kept moving, her eyes sharp, her ears listening. And then she saw it, faint at first. A soft silver glow ahead, moving slowly between the trees. She held her breath. It was the child, carrying another cabbage. Walking as if the forest was its home, Mara followed, careful, keeping her distance. Her lantern hidden beneath her shawl, the child moved deeper, deeper into the forest until the trees grew thick, until the night seemed endless, and then Mara's eyes widened. Because there, half hidden by vines and moss, was something she had never dreamed she would see. A shape not made by human hands, metal bent and broken, a small craft lying crooked on the earth, its sides scarred, its surface dark yet faintly glowing. Like the skin of the child itself, Mara froze. Her breath caught. Her lantern shook in her hand. It was a ship, small, strange. Wounded, not of earth, not of man, she whispered to herself. By the heavens, her voice lost in the trees. The child walked to the broken ship, placed the cabbage near it like an offering, then curled beside it, small arms wrapped around its knees, eyes glowing softly in the dark like a guard keeping watch. Like a child guarding home, Mara felt her chest tighten. She saw the truth clearer than ever. The child was stranded, alone, with only this broken craft for comfort. It had no family here, no friends, no safety, and her heart ached. She stepped closer, careful not to startle it, but a branch snapped under her foot. The sound sharp in the silence, the child's head snapped up, its eyes glowing brighter. It stared at her, tense, ready to flee. Mara raised her hands, empty, her lantern low, her voice gentle. Do not fear me, little one, I only wish to see. I will not harm you, the child hesitated, its body trembling, its glowing eyes locked on her face. Then slowly it lowered its head again, not relaxed but not running. Mara took a step closer, then another, until she stood near the strange ship, her eyes tracing its curves, its marks, its alien nature. She whispered, So it is true you fell from the sky. The child made a soft sound, low and broken, and touched the ship's side, as if agreeing, as if saying, Yes, this is my home, but my home is broken. Mara's throat tightened, her old hands reached out, and she touched the metal, cold, smooth, scarred, and she felt it, a hum, faint, weak, like the last breath of a dying thing. She pulled her hand back quickly, heart pounding. The ship was alive in some way, not dead but wounded, sleeping. Her thoughts swirled. If the villagers knew, if the soldiers from the city knew, they would come, they would take, they would destroy. She felt it in her bones. Humans feared what they did not know, and this child, this ship, would not survive their fear. She looked at the small figure curled beside the broken craft, eyes glowing faint, and her heart made its choice. She would protect it. She would keep it secret, even if it meant standing alone. The night stretched long. Mara stayed hidden near the clearing, watching the child sleep against the ship. She felt the weight of the stars above, the vast sky that had sent this little one crashing down into her quiet village. She thought of her long years, her lonely nights, and she felt something new, a bond, fragile but strong, between herself and the child from the stars by dawn. She slipped back to her house, silent, her mind heavy with wonder and fear. She looked at the village roofs glowing in the morning light. She knew she could not tell them. They would not understand. They would not forgive. She sat by her table, hands trembling, whispering to herself, I have seen the ship. I have seen the truth, and I will carry it alone. The village was still half asleep when the first trucks came, their engines low and heavy, their wheels grinding the dirt road. The sound was strange in that quiet place, like thunder rolling through the morning mist. Children stopped their play. Farmers froze in their fields. Women pulled back from the wells, all eyes turned toward the gray machines that did not belong. Men in dark uniforms climbed down, their boots hard against the earth, their faces stern, their voices clipped. They carried strange boxes that beeped and blinked, and their eyes swept across the village as if searching for something invisible. The leader, a tall man with sharp eyes, spoke to the villagers, his voice strong and without warmth. "We are here for an investigation. Strange signals have been detected in this region. You will answer our questions, you will not lie." The villagers trembled. They whispered among themselves. They thought of Mara's stories, of the old woman who spoke of a glowing child. Some smirked, thinking she would be blamed now. Others grew pale, fearing her words were true. Mara stood silent at the edge of the square, her wrinkled hands clutching her shawl. Her heart heavy with dread. She knew what they were looking for. She knew what they might find, and she knew she could not let them. The soldiers moved quickly. They searched barns. They walked through the fields, their machines humming, their eyes sharp. They asked about strange lights, about missing animals, about unusual sounds in the night. The villagers shook their heads. Some told half-truths, some pointed toward the forest, but no one mentioned the child, not yet. Only Mara's lips stayed pressed tight, holding in the secret she now carried that night. The village was restless. The truck stayed parked by the square. Soldiers patrolled with flashlights, their beams cutting the darkness. And Mara sat in her little wooden house, her lantern dim, her shovel by the door. She whispered to herself, "They must not find you, little one. They must not see your ship, or it will be the end." Her eyes moved again and again to the cellar door under her floor, for hidden there was not her potatoes, not her tools, but the alien child for the night before. When the soldiers were not yet near, Mara had gone again to the forest. She had found the child shivering by the broken ship, its eyes full of fear as if it too had heard the engines, and she had taken its hand. She had led it back through the dark paths, whispering soft words, and she had hidden it in her cellar, covering the entrance with heavy boards. She had given it food, water, and a blanket, and now it rested there silent, trusting her, waiting for her to keep her promise, but promises were heavy things, and Mara felt the weight pressing down. Each knock on a neighbor's door, each shout of the soldiers, each bark of their dogs made her heart pound. She knew it was only a matter of time before they came to her house, before their boots stomped on her floor, before their eyes searched her cellar. And if they found the child, they would not see a child. They would see a danger, a weapon, a prize to capture. The knock came sooner than she feared, a hard fist on her old door. She opened it to the tall man with sharp eyes, his uniform crisp, his voice cold. "Old woman, you live by the fields, you see much, tell me. Have you noticed anything unusual, anything at all?" Mara's throat tightened. Her heart screamed to speak, to confess, but her spirit held firm. She looked into his eyes and said, "Only foxes and owls, nothing more." The man studied her face, his eyes narrow as if trying to cut through her words. Then he stepped inside, his boots loud on her floor. He looked at her shelves, at her table, at her stove. He tapped the boards with his boot, and Mara felt her blood turn to ice. Beneath those boards, the child sat in silence, its glowing eyes staring at the wood above, its small body pressed against the dirt wall, waiting, praying in its own way that it would not be found. The man turned, his expression unreadable, then left, saying only, "If you hear or see anything, you will tell us." Mara nodded, her face calm, but when the door shut, she sank into her chair, her hands shaking, sweat cold on her forehead. She had faced wolves in her youth, hunger in her middle years, but nothing compared to this. Nothing compared to hiding a child from the stars beneath her floor while men with guns walked above. That night she went to the cellar. She lifted the board slowly, and there it was, the child, its eyes glowing faint in the dark. It looked up at her, not afraid, only waiting. She knelt beside it, whispering, "They are searching for you. They want to take you. But I will not let them. I will protect you. Even if I must stand alone." The child reached out its hand, touched hers lightly, and though it spoke no word, Mara felt the meaning. It trusted her, and that trust gave her strength above them. The soldiers kept searching, their trucks humming, their dogs barking, their machines beeping, and the villagers grew restless, torn between fear of the soldiers and fear of the unknown. Some whispered that Mara was cursed. Others whispered that Mara was blessed, but none dared to act. Not yet, for the forest held its secrets, and the soldiers had not found them. But Mara knew the time was short. She knew men like these would not leave without answers. She knew eyes sharper than hers were hunting, and she knew the day would come when she must choose to surrender the child or to fight for it. And in her heart, though her body was old, she already knew her choice. She would fight for the strange child of the stars, for mercy, for humanity itself. The soldiers stayed in the village for many days, their trucks parked like sleeping beasts, their machines humming through the night, their dogs restless, their eyes sharp. They searched again and again, barns, fields, even wells, But they found nothing, yet they did not leave, because their devices still pointed to the forest, still whispered of signals, still promised something strange hiding near. The villagers grew uneasy, their simple lives broken by the presence of uniforms and guns. They spoke in whispers at the market. They gathered in small groups at night, their words sharp with fear. Some said it was better to help the soldiers, to hand over whatever was hiding before it brought danger to them all. Others said nothing should be given. Nothing should be trusted, because these soldiers served only themselves, and in the middle of it all was Mara, the old woman with sharp eyes and a heavy secret in her small wooden house. The cellar still hid the alien child, silent and watchful, its glowing eyes soft in the darkness. Each night Mara brought food, bread, water, sometimes a cabbage from her field, and each night the child reached out its small hand, trusting her more, needing her more, and with each touch Mara's heart grew heavier, because she knew she could not hide it forever. She knew the village would not keep silent forever. The breaking point came on a stormy evening, rain falling hard on the roofs, lightning flashing across the sky. The villagers gathered in the hall at the center of the square. The soldiers stood at the back, silent but watching. The leader spoke, his voice like iron. "We know something is here, something not of this world. If you hide it, you are traitors. If you reveal it, you will be safe. Choose wisely." Fear spread through the room like fire. Voices rose. Some shouted that nothing was here. Others whispered that Mara knew something. One farmer stood and said, "The old woman spoke of glowing eyes. She warned us before. Maybe she knows more than she says." Mara stood slowly, her back bent but her spirit straight, her voice steady as she said, "Yes, I have seen it, yes. I know it is real, but it is not a danger. It is a child, alone and hungry. It is not our enemy." The hall erupted in noise. Some gasped, some laughed, some cursed. One man shouted, "A child, you call it a child, it is a monster. It is a curse from the sky." Another said, "If the soldiers take it, they will leave us in peace." But Mara's voice cut through the storm, sharp and clear. "If we betray one child, even one not born of this earth, what does that make us if we hand over the helpless? What kind of people are we?" The leader's eyes narrowed, his voice cold. "It is not your place to decide. Old woman, this is not your child, this is property of the state. It belongs to us." But Mara did not move. She did not bow. She raised her hand, shaking yet strong, and said, "No, it belongs to no one. It belongs to itself, and it is under my protection." Silence fell heavy, broken only by thunder outside. The villagers stared, torn between fear and respect. Some felt shame, others felt anger, but all knew the choice was upon them. One side fear, one side mercy, and Mara stood alone in the middle, carrying both like a burden on her thin shoulders. That night soldiers searched again, their flashlights sweeping, their dogs barking. They came close, too close, until they reached Mara's barn, the beams of light catching the wooden door. The barking growing louder, the leader raising his hand for the men to move in. Mara's heart pounded, her shovel heavy in her grip. Behind the barn wall the child hid, its glowing eyes dimmed in fear, its small hands clutching a blanket, waiting for whatever would come. Mara stepped forward, standing between the soldiers and the barn, rain dripping from her shawl, her body frail yet unbroken. "You will not take it," she said, her voice raw but steady. The leader glared, his hand tightening on his weapon. "Step aside, old woman, or you will be moved." But she did not step aside. She planted her shovel into the mud, leaned on it, and stared at him with eyes as sharp as steel. "If you want it, you will go through me." For a long moment, no one moved, the soldiers tense, the villagers watching from doorways, lightning flashing across the sky. And then a voice broke the silence, not Mara's, not the leader's, but a child's, high and trembling, from within the barn. "Please," the word broken, strange on its tongue, yet clear enough to pierce every heart that heard it. "Please, no." The villagers gasped. The soldiers froze, and Mara's eyes filled with tears. The alien child had spoken, not as a monster, not as a curse, but as a frightened child begging for mercy. And in that moment the choice was no longer Mara's alone. It was the choice of the whole village, the choice of humanity itself. Would they hand it over to fear, or would they stand for something greater, something brighter, something that showed the stars that humans were more than their weapons, more than their fear, that sometimes, when faced with the unknown, they chose mercy. The barn was silent except for the sound of rain striking its roof. Soldiers stood with weapons ready. Villagers huddled in doorways. their faces pale in the lightning flashes, and Mara stood firm in the mud, her shovel planted before her like a staff, her body bent but her spirit tall. Then the word came again, trembling, broken, but clear enough to shatter the tension. Please know, every ear heard it, every heart felt it. It was not the voice of a monster, not the cry of a weapon. It was the plea of a child, weak and frightened, asking for mercy. The soldiers shifted uncertain, their eyes flicking between their leader and the barn. The villagers whispered among themselves, the fear in their faces beginning to melt into something else, something heavier, the weight of choice. The leader raised his hand, his face hard. It is not a child, it is an unknown. It is dangerous. His voice rang like steel, but it no longer cut as sharp as before. Mara's eyes burned with fire, her voice steady and strong. You hear it as I hear it, it is a child. Maybe not of our blood, maybe not of our world, but a child all the same. And if we cannot show mercy to a child, then what worth are we, her words echoed, carried by the storm. And the villagers looked at each other, their fear warring with their hearts. One woman whispered. It only took food, another man said. It never harmed anyone, an old farmer muttered. Would you hand over a lost child to men with guns? Slowly the whispers grew into voices, voices into strength, until the villagers stepped from their doorways, gathering behind Mara, not many at first, but then more, until a small crowd stood wet from the rain, but with eyes that glowed with something stronger than fear. The leader's jaw tightened. He barked, Stand aside, all of you, this is not your matter. But the villagers did not move. Mara raised her shovel higher, her voice firm. It is our matter. Because it came to us, because it is in our fields, because it trusted one of us, and we will not betray that trust. The barn door creaked open slowly, and there it was, the alien child stepping into the rain, its small frame trembling, its glowing eyes wide but not angry, not wild, only full of sorrow and courage. It clutched the edge of the door with thin fingers. The villagers gasped, some crossed themselves, others took a step back, but none ran. They only stared at the strange being, at the lost child from the stars. The child stepped closer, water running down its pale glowing skin. It lifted its head toward the soldiers, its voice weak but clear. No fight, no harm. Please, the words broken, but the meaning unmistakable. It did not come as an enemy. It came only asking not to be hurt. The silence that followed was heavy, more powerful than any thunder. The soldiers shifted again, their fingers twitching on weapons, but their eyes were not as certain. Some lowered their rifles slightly, and the leader glared at them, his voice rising. It is a threat, it must be taken. We cannot risk it. But even as he spoke, the villagers stepped forward, a wall of simple farmers, mothers, fathers, children, standing between the soldiers and the alien child, their faces pale but firm, their bodies small but unshaken. Mara at the front, her shovel raised like a sword of defiance. No, Mara said, her voice carrying in the storm. You will not take it, you will not chain it. You will not make it a prisoner, because here in this village we choose mercy. And if you cannot understand that, then you will go back with empty hands. The soldiers looked at their leader, doubt in their eyes, the child's glowing gaze fixed on him too, unblinking, waiting. Lightning split the sky, and for a long moment the world held its breath. Then the leader spat on the ground, his voice bitter. This is not the end. You will regret this choice. He turned sharply, barking orders, and the soldiers pulled back, their rifles lowered, their trucks rumbling to life, the engines growling as they left the village behind. The silence after was louder than the storm. Villagers stood together, their chests heavy with relief. Mara lowered her shovel, her arms trembling, her knees weak but her spirit still burning bright. She turned to the child, rain dripping from her gray hair, and for the first time she smiled, soft and tired. You are safe now, little one. You are safe with us. The child stepped forward, its small hand reaching for hers, their fingers touched. And in that touch was a promise, not of fear, not of war, but of hope. Hope that mercy could be stronger than fear. Hope that humanity could choose kindness even when faced with the unknown. The villagers watched, their hearts stirred, and one by one they nodded, some even smiling, the fear lifting from them like mist after the storm. From that day, the alien child was no longer a thief, no longer a shadow in the fields. It was part of the village, quiet, watchful, learning slowly, cared for by Mara and guarded by all. And though the soldiers had left, the villagers knew they might return, yet they also knew they would stand again, because they had made their choice, and that choice was clear. Humans were feared across the stars. The child would one day learn, feared for their strength, feared for their hunger, feared for their wars. But in that small village on that stormy night, humanity showed something else, something brighter. They showed that sometimes, when the universe watched closely, humans chose mercy, and in that choice was their greatest strength.